So Dumpy and Bumpy is finally out on Nintendo Switch. And I thought I would get together with some of the people at Screenwave Media to talk about it and to share with you some of the cool things from the history of block puzzles. It's like an informal thing, guys.
Hey, Justin, production director at Screenwave Media, and this is...
I'm Kieran. I'm an assistant showrunner for Screenwave, Cinemassacre, and many other things.
And a damn fine video editor.
And newly crowned Twitch partner, by the way. Let's go!
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember when Kieran first started his Twitch channel, and, you know, it just kept growing and growing, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I think.
I've been having a great time with it, especially recently. It's grown
And you
insanely.
guys played Dumpy and Bumpy together.
Yes.
You were dumping and bumping.
We were,
Yeah.
on
Cool.
stream.
Yep.
It was a good time. I'm Ryan Schott. I'm the president of Screenwave Media. The developer of Dumpy and Bumpy, his name's Programmancer, and I started following him on Twitter, like 6 months ago, because I was really impressed with like the retro game style that he had, and he was working on this game called the Transylvanian Adventure of Simon Quest.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I'm like, wow, okay, I get the joke, you know. And he's very tongue in cheek about it. Like he knows what's up. So I looked at it and I'm like, wow, he made this game called Dumpy and Bumpy. That's so interesting. Because I was a big fan of other puzzle platformers like Lolo. You know, that's a classic one you always think about. And I saw it and I was like, yeah, this game needs to come to Nintendo Switch. So I reached out to Programmancer and I was like, hey, you know, I'm really digging what you're doing with Simon Quest. I really like what you did with Dumpy and Bumpy. How would you feel if we published it and brought it to Nintendo Switch? Not only that, when we got Dumpy and Bumpy, it was only in English. We translated it into, 10 languages.
Yeah.
It's a worldwide release now, which is pretty cool. But I figured I'd take the time, since I have you here, to talk a little bit about block puzzles in general and give people an idea of like some things that may have motivated him, I guess, to make this game.
Yeah, because block puzzles have always been more of a retro thing. There's a few modern games with that, but it's good to see a new game on the market that brings back the block puzzle.
Yeah.
Especially with the very tighto, cool looking graphics.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's definitely got the Lolo vibes, the bubble bobble. Just put it out there, you know.
Yeah, Bubble Bob.
Dumpy and Bumpy and Bob and Bub. Maybe they're long lost cousins in another dimension or something.
Right.
But what started it all was a game called Sokobon. Sokobon came out on the PC 88. It came out in the early 80s, and it was block pushing puzzles.
Yeah.
Really, and that's like the foundation, and everything else builds on that, which I think is pretty interesting. Leading up to this game, I went to Sokobon Online, which is actually a service where you can play Sokobon puzzles like in your browser or on your phone or whatever, and they have like thousands of them, and it's crazy that like it's very active. There's a lot of people on there, so like. You know, we're 30 years in, almost 40, and people are still playing the original, let alone all the other games that came after.
Yeah.
And the PC 88, that's like the Nintendo PC that they made in Japan, right?
It's Sharp.
It's Sharp, yeah, but there were a lot of Nintendo games made for it or something.
Yeah, it's
it's
like a console in its own right. We didn't get it here. Like if you wanted to play Sokobon here, it's like Commodore 64.
Okay.
It's on PC. It's a little bit more of like a PC centric thing, at least how it started.
Mm-hmm.
Another famous early block puzzle game was Chip's Challenge for the Atari Lynx.
Oh.
I don't really think about the Atari Lynx as being like good at anything.
I mean, I guess it needed its puzzles though, right? Because it was handheld. And was this the only major puzzle game for it? Because
no, there's different ones.
okay,
What year did the Lynx come out?
I don't know.
It came out after the Game Boy, I'm pretty
That's
sure.
what I thought.
Yeah.
It's earlier than you think.
Yeah, oh,
right?
okay.
It's so Chip's Challenge came out in 1989.
Oh shit.
And the one thing that I thought was really interesting about it is the game has 9 level designers. And it's like you think about block puzzle games and how hard it is to do the levels.
Yeah.
let alone make the levels.
That's what I guess that's one thing with me is I've always never understood. Like, playing a puzzle game is crazy on its own, but having to actually create a puzzle game and make it that someone has to solve it,
right.
The thought process behind that is always what kind of gets me.
Is it computerized? Like, for example, when you go to like the grocery store and they have like the Sudoku book and the word find book, does someone make all those, or is it like computer generated?
So it's funny that you brought up Sudoku. There are like people who are like Sudoku masters who make puzzles. I've seen a Sudoku where they add rules and there's like one number or no numbers. And I'm like, man, these people are insane. So no, it's not a computer, although you probably could get one to do it. Mm-hmm. It's actually people figuring them out. The thing that amazes me most about puzzle games is the fact that there's not multiple obvious solutions.
Yeah.
Like they kind of are able to use the rules to get you going one way. Dumpy and Bumpy is a little different than that though, because there is like the action element. And Lolo's the same way, and Fire and Ice and things like that, where you're dodging enemies and stuff while you're solving the puzzle.
Yeah.
So if you don't like puzzles that are like very tight sequencing, like, oh, I got to solve it like a riddle, this is more you get to play it like a game,
right?
Which is really good. And I always think of the NES as the system that block puzzles lived on.
You kind of had to, like the 8-bit. If you're not a platformer, how else are you going to do it? Like the puzzles make sense.
Yeah.
Especially block puzzles because everything's a pixel. It's a square, right?
Right. So like the big NES block puzzle games, obviously Adventure of Lolo. There's 3 of them. There's the first one, the second one, and the third one. They're HAL Laboratories.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of interesting.
Well, also,
Kirby, right?
and actually in Kirby, the second level of Kirby is Castle Lolo.
Oh yeah.
And it's Lolo's like the Lolos are the final bosses of it, and they're pushing blocks through the level, and you have to eat the blocks and then spit them back out at them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at Lolo and you look at Kirby, you could definitely see that there's like that heritage. But one of the block puzzle games on Nintendo that I'm more getting into these days is Fire and Ice. So Fire and Ice is Solomon's Key 2.
Okay.
It's got 100 levels, which is cool. But then when you beat it, there's like 50 more, which is kind of neat. But what I like about it most is that you can make your own levels.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Right, which is cool. But the version we got in the United States is a little weird because it doesn't have the battery backup. It's passwords.
Okay.
So you can't save your levels. But the Japanese one, you could.
Yeah.
So we kind of missed out on that.
I've played Solomon's Key, and I've played the Game Boy one, which is Solomon's Club.
Yeah.
It's like the same game, though. Where
Yeah.
you create blocks and everything of that.
Yeah.
And then Fire and Ice, I guess, adds the element of the elements.
So like Fire and Ice is like stuck on its like storyline. Like the storyline affects the gameplay so much. So you live on this like ice island, and the Queen of Ice has commissioned you to stop the attacking fire people. So it's all about pushing ice over fires, either from above. It's like top down. It's not top down. It's more like platformer scale.
The Song of Fire and Ice.
Yeah.
Like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, right.
Eh.
Yeah, I could just imagine like George R.R. Martin is just sitting in like a bar watching football because he's a big football guy.
Yeah.
He likes to write about football more than he likes to write about
the Game of Thrones.
the Game of
books,
Thrones.
yeah.
It's like where's Winds of Winter, man? I want to.
I think have you ever watched Game Center CX?
Yes,
the
I
Japanese
have.
show?
I have
believe
watched
he's
it.
Played Fire and Ice. I think there's an episode.
Really?
Yeah, because I used to get really into the Twitch stream. There's Twitch streams that just show every episode from start to end. They're always constantly getting taken down, but I have the DVD of it, and I think it's on there actually.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so like there's dedicated block puzzle games, but then there's a million games where the block puzzling actually like is just an element of it. Like it's another genre. It could be an RPG or an adventure game. And I think that NES and Super Nintendo RPGs are really where you really see block puzzling come into like other genres. I was going through making this video, and I was trying to remember from childhood games that had big block puzzles and just try to find them. And I didn't realize how much Lufia 2 was like super into block puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And Dragon Quest 3. That's another one for NES. Like that game is long. And I was surprised, but there's block puzzles in that too, which is pretty crazy. I was recently playing Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, believe it or not. And there's a whole bunch of things where you push around blocks in that. And it's just, you constantly start seeing it. It's like, I have an RPG. It has combat. It has story. Oh, how are we going to break it up? How are we going to have some activity? Well, it's already on a grid, so let's add some block puzzles.
Yeah, I always considered block puzzles in RPGs to be more like padding in a certain section, but...
Yeah, you're definitely not going to get what you get with a dedicated puzzle game.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them are like, move the 2 to the left, move it up, go through. But the RPGs are in that era are just crazy for it. But what's the biggest game of that era that has block puzzles in it?
Final Fantasy?
Like Zelda.
Oh, Zelda.
Yeah, I
didn't even
say,
think about that.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda had where you got to push, to get to like treasure chests. Like there's that one part in Super Nintendo where there's like 3 treasure chests, and you can possibly push the blocks where you can't ever get all of them.
Yeah.
You have to push them the right way to get every.
So you're talking about Link to the Past.
Link to the Past, yeah.
I think block puzzles have been part of Zelda from the beginning, and they're still in it today.
Oh yeah.
But I was watching this video online. The NES block puzzles in Zelda, you could just easily glitch through.
Oh yeah.
And I just watch people go through it. Like literally, you line the character up with how like the blocks are like pyramids.
Yeah.
If you line Link's head up with like the middle line, and you press down and hit the sword, if you do it just right, Link will look right instead of look down, and then you just pop right through the block.
Huh.
And it's super easy to do for people who know how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's all these great things where you gotta like push blocks and kill all the enemies in the room and do all this stuff. And people are just like, oh, glitching through.
Yeah. I was wondering how people even figured that out.
Yeah. But Link's Awakening has more evolution in it. There's switches that you could push onto. There's all kinds of things. But I think the definitive top-down Zelda when it comes to block puzzles is Link to the Past.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get the Cane of Soraya.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually create blocks.
Yeah.
And use them for different reasons. The other thing I like about it is in the desert temple with the lasers.
Oh yeah.
They're constantly pushing the blocks like defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So they took the block gameplay and moved it into like the
combat. To the actual game mechanics rather than just solve a thing, leave the like it's not an isolated dungeon anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of weird, but Sonic the Hedgehog the first one has actual parts where you have to push blocks over switches to like make the thing rise up. You have to push the blocks into the lava so you can ride on the block across and stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. You know, I knew they were there, but I never thought of it.
Yeah, it's not like a dedicated again though, but it's like you need to use blocks to pass through certain places. It mostly I think it's in Marble Zone. I think that's the only place though that they have anything like that. Yeah. But it's and also no, I don't think in Labyrinth Zone you do. I think I'm wrong about that.
So I got 2 games for you. Goof Troop, right?
Okay.
Goof Troop is like chock full of block puzzles. But there's a related game, and I know it's a game that Kieran...
I know what you're going to say, actually. I know very well.
What am I going to say?
Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Because Shinji Mikami worked on Goof Troop first.
Yeah.
And went on to Resident Evil afterwards.
Oh, that's cool. So could you tell us about the block puzzles in Resident Evil?
Yeah, there's always, in the first bunch of games, there's always these blocks that you need to push to get through water.
Okay.
So the first one in Resident Evil, the first one is when you get to the underground laboratory, you got to push these blocks into a flooded passage that you have to push them a certain way because you can get them stuck on the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
You have to make sure you get them the right way. And then in Resident Evil 2, it's the same thing. There's a room that fills with water and you have to push the blocks so you can use them as a bridge.
You know what I think's funny? Talking about block puzzles, the process of pushing blocks on a grid can be defined by math. So there's some mathematician somewhere whose job it is to just do block puzzles and write rules for block puzzles and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's a interesting job, I guess.
I think too in every Resident Evil game there's been even in Resident Evil 4 there's some parts where you have to push objects over switches. They might not be blocks, it might be statues or something.
Right.
It's the same exact principles.
Yeah. I guess that was like a progression in block puzzles. It went from it's a block to like the Zelda style where there's a little like texture to now it's a statue or a brick or something.
Yeah, it's like the size of like, you gotta push it around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pushing puzzles in Resident Evil.
Aside from just like the 2D puzzles where you have to like do slide puzzles and bullshit.
Yeah.
That game.
Well, I mean, there's also the red jewel. You got to push the two statues so they're facing the thing, and then it drops the red jewel and everything like that.
And I want to be clear, when I'm talking about block puzzles, I'm talking about block pushing puzzles, not like Professor Layton, like where it's a grid or Tetris or a puzzle game. No, this is where you have a character who pushes blocks around like a world.
Yeah.
That's kind of a requirement. In the 3D era, the blocks that they push got comically big for practical reasons, like not just being able to just hop over it.
Well, because you were making platforms.
Yeah.
And the platforms had to be big because the controls are slippery.
I'm thinking back to like Tomb Raider.
Yes.
Like Tomb Raider has a huge amount of blocks, but like Lara Croft is like this like 120-pound woman or whatever, and she's pushing gigantic granite blocks.
Yeah, and then like they're
flipping
off of that.
Right.
And that's how you'd find like secrets in the game, how you traverse areas. Like Resident Evil, but to the nth degree.
Yeah. But she moves them like they have wheels.
Yeah.
Like she just like kind of same thing with and also another a Crystal Dynamics game, but Legacy of Kain.
Oh yeah.
Soul Revert. There was a whole bunch. Every single time you go into a new dungeon, there is a block puzzle.
Yeah.
Where you have to push the blocks into these kind of cubbies that have holes the right way, and you have to make sure everything lines up. Yeah.
It messes with me when it's like 3D and you have to stack as well as push, or there's some like thing like that's tough.
That was in Legacy of Kain also. You had to stack them up sometimes, and he would just grab them and like throw them everywhere. It was actually like pretty
Could
easy.
you rotate? Some games
so.
You can rotate.
I can't remember if you can rotate or like I know you can strafe them across and stuff. I think you could. I think you could also flip them. So like you had to like sometimes flip them over each other.
Yeah.
So they're all facing the right way.
Do you consider Intelligent Cube to be a block puzzle game?
I thought about it.
Yeah.
When we were making this video, I played Intelligent Cube for a little bit. By the way, it's so easy to emulate PS1 games now.
Now it is, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, so I was playing Intelligent Cube, and I think Intelligent Cube fits into like the
Tetris.
Right. Like other, same thing, Devil Dice.
Okay.
Right? Because that's more like, it's like a fictional, like puzzle space rather than a world. Yeah, I thought about it, but I don't think that's a block pushing game. It's a block catching game.
Okay.
It's totally different genre. There's not many of those. Late PlayStation game, Squaresoft, Vagrant Story. So Vagrant Story, I think, is a ridiculous game. It looks like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I always thought as a kid that it looks like it uses the Final Fantasy Tactics engine. Because everything's on a grid.
Isometric, yeah.
And it's like isometric, and you could rotate with the buttons and things. But that character is ripped. He lifts up the blocks and throws them. And there's a whole bunch of like block stacking puzzles and platforming that break up turn-based combat.
I've never played that, but that's a really impressive game. Like it had some of the best 3D modeling for the PlayStation 1. Character faces and stuff like that. Like
it looks like a PS2 game.
Yeah, it's like real early.
I never played that. The only RPGs I played on PlayStation were Final Fantasy.
Vagrant Story, I had to like stop a playthrough when I was a kid because like that game's all about buffs and debuffs, and if you don't know what you're doing, you get in a situation where you just can't kill the enemies. I don't know. It's a flawed game, but it's a decent game. I got one for you, Justin.
Yeah.
Pokemon.
Well, Pokemon and a lot of the stuff on the Game Boy, because, the Game Boy was still going hot even when the SNES or even when the N64 was out.
Yeah.
Right? That was still, like, going on. Like, you could put your Game Boy games in the N64 to play Pokemon Stadium and stuff. Like, it was still going on. So a lot of the NES 8-bit kind of block puzzle stuff went back into Game Boy games. And yeah, Pokemon had a ton of them. The moves stuff out of the way. You get a TM or an HM, I think, for strength to push things.
Yeah.
So it was
that's
more
right.
it was more like world and obstacle building, and also all the gyms were like mini dungeons, and most were like elevator puzzles, block puzzles that still go on to this day. Even with Sword and Shield, you're still doing the bullshit.
Yeah.
So
we talked about games in the 80s. We talked about games in the 90s. We talked about games in the early 2000s. But gaming has not left block puzzles behind. You guys ever hear of an Atlas game called Catherine?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So like the stress of block puzzling mirrors the stress of like being in a relationship in that game.
Yeah, that game's
so
not-
like
especially the full body expansion. That's like a whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like you never thought like you'd be talking to someone and like, what genre is this game? Well, it's a block pushing dating simulator,
Yeah.
right? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real nightmare.
Yeah. And oh, I saw what you did there.
Yeah.
Because it is a nightmare. Even in 2021, we still have games that are super block puzzle focused. Do you guys play Fall Guys?
Yeah.
A little bit, not too much, but yeah, I played a
Yeah,
little bit of it.
because that's kind of like Takeshi's Castle, MXC.
Yeah.
You know, everyone runs and only one person can make it, and that really took over the world in 2020.
I get stressed out playing battle royale games. I
Do you?
choke. Yeah, I choke whenever. I mean, you remember when I used to play PUBG with you guys?
It was bad.
horrendous. Yeah,
Kieran would get very mad.
I would get like really upset, and I would.
then I'd get mad
Justin
at
would get
him.
mad. I would just kind of choke. Like I would have a full shot and just blow it, and never hit anything.
But Fall Guys has a level called Wall Guys, which is literally just like extreme block pushing challenge.
Okay.
You know, where everybody's running and they're trying to push the blocks. And I don't know how many videos I watched online of someone playing that, and they push the block just a little bit. It
And
takes
someone
somebody.
else goes.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game, right? Do you wait and have someone else do it and go first, or lose your chance?
Yeah.
Like,
And you know that kind of leads back to Dumpy and Bumpy. One of the things I like about Dumpy and Bumpy is if you are looking at a puzzle and you can't figure it out, there's two ways you can go. One, you could do the co-op mode where two people play at the same time. And the other thing you could do is you could just do battle mode where
Yeah.
you're not solving any puzzles. You're just trying to
It's just beating the other person. Yeah.
be in the other person.
was fun.
that's cool because a lot of block puzzle games, some have had battle things like a Bomberman situation. Some have, which isn't really a block puzzle, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And some things have a co-op, but not usually both.
Right.
So this game has like and then like the story mode or whatever. So this game has a lot going for it, I think.
Dumpy and Bumpy came out on Switch now. It is available for $5.
Yeah.
We have multiple worlds of block pushing fun. We have golf. We have block running, where you have to like form a unique pattern through the blocks to do it. We have explosive blocks. We have battle mode. We have co-op. So, you know, I figured that because we came out with a block puzzle game with Program Answer, it'd be fun to tell everybody on the channel about the block puzzles.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So check out Dumpy and Bumpy, Switch and Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today.
We're going to be doing more of these videos. I guess we're going to try to do every 2 weeks where we just sit down and talk about what Screenwave Games is doing,
Yeah.
talk about history of games, just talk about
Yeah, it's kind of like a bi-weekly podcast situation.
yeah,
So,
we're just trying to keep you informed of what we're doing and things we think are cool and
yeah, sometimes it'll be about games and stuff. Sometimes it'll be about the actual games we're working on, which is top secret game pile over here.
oh yeah.
That's top secret game pile.
We'll hit
Yeah.
that in another episode.